Hi, everyone, and welcome back to my show. This is Rooted Recovery Stories with Patrick Custer normally, but oh, how the tables have turned today.
Well, even though we removed the table, it did turn.
The table was, for some reason, Patrick's comfort blanket, and I think we might need to work through that. But I wanted everyone to see your shoes.
Oh, my shoes?
Yeah, because they match. The creams match perfectly.
They do. I actually love these. They're new from, I'm not going to say. And... but we also have to show some appreciation to
Daniel Diamond.
Yes.
In the showroom. Thank you to both of them.
Yeah.
I had to show up and show out today because you're too symmetrical. So I have to bring my A game when I'm on camera with you because you're like annoyingly like, you know what I mean?
No.
Okay. Anyways, so I'll do the interview because that's the plan.
Yeah.
But you should why don't you start by saying why you wanted to turn the tables?
Oh, well, so, it's interesting. It's taken some time to come to fruition. And something I hadn't told you was that I'd had a number of members from, people that tune in a lot, that wrote in over recent months. And then also people in the entertainment industry that have said to me, it's been a long time since you've told your story, and a lot of life has happened since then.
Yeah.
Where are you about
doing this?
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm one of those people where I can tell I'm getting nervous because I'm getting dry mouth, and that,
oh my God, you're getting nervous?
I mean, not super nervous, but I don't normally get nerves in these.
You can't have with which syndrome in this episode.
With which?
Remember, I call it with which syndrome?
No.
When you're being so you get more proper when you get nervous. And then you start saying sentences that are like, have you ever done anything or had any experiences with which you, and I'm like, you are not writing the Constitution. Stop saying with which. It sounds like which.
Yes.
Which I frequented in college.
Which. I don't think I ever went there, but
it's not that good.
There's so much to unpack there. I think that we all have certain layers of places we go to in moments of insecurity, and maybe not, I guess it's varying degrees of insecurity, right? Or just coming out of fear and worrying that you're going to, the perfectionism stuff. And for me, I think both of mine go to what you would say, the with which syndrome, where I want to over articulate things. But the other one that we've talked about a lot for me is depending on who I'm talking to, that whole chameleon syndrome for me, of if it's a straight man, or someone I don't really know, or someone that's very stoic.
You mimic.
Well, I might mimic, but I definitely go into this. I mean, I think I have my own very...
Yeah. I don't know. You're not a copycat.
My friends have a name I'm not going to say, but for this, it's this old executive that we used to have at our company, and apparently it's a lot like him, and it's very laced up and I don't know, back to movie phone, which y'all don't know about. I wish somebody from the audience would. I want to talk about this for a second. This is so off topic from everything period that we're supposed to be talking about, but this is going to be the most random, where I can already tell you we're going to be
board
random.
Game. I don't know it.
No,
you're a lot older than me though. So.
Oh my God, y'all. Okay, so this was before we were rolling about 6 months ago for an episode, having to do a sound check, and I'm doing, instead of the regular thing, because I didn't want to be boring, I'm like, hello and welcome to Movie Phone, brought to you by, thinking that some people might laugh. No one in the studio laughed.
There's a lot of Gen Zers in here.
You're not.
I know. We're the same age, so. No, I feel that.
I need some validation that somebody in our audience knows what I'm talking about.
Someone will, I'm sure. I mean, I've seen the demographics. There's some people between the ages of 60 and 80 that do listen.
I'm gonna kill you.
I want to know why are you nervous doing this with me? Because you're with me all the time. You just get nervous in general when you're doing the podcast? You said you were nervous.
I don't get nervous doing the podcast.
Oh.
No, just right now. I can tell if ever it comes up, I get dry mouth when I'm speaking, whether it's like news or I think it's when it's something different. And this is different because the seat that I'm normally in, I'm normally the one asking the questions.
Right.
And
now you have no control.
Yeah, I think it's the like letting go of it's that whole like, are we going to talk about what is supposed to get talked about?
I thought a lot about like where I want to start, because you have told your story before. The very first episode, when you moved the podcast from being a way to get to people during COVID, you did the podcast on Zoom. And then when that ended, and like, I guess about a year ago.
No, we're well over a year.
Of you being here?
Yeah, we started in the spring of last year.
Okay. So like almost a year and a half.
Yep.
Okay. So when we did that, we told your story again, even though you've told it in AA a lot. You've told your recovery story to like everyone in your community, or at least people that you have close relationships with. But to the podcast audience, we had you retell it on camera. And it was very chronological. It was very emotional too. It wasn't just chronological. It was a lot of things. But I think that naturally some aspects of your story will come up. But a lot of things have happened since your journey to sobriety, because you've been sober for
so long.
13 years.
Yeah.
13 years. We just had a sober birthday for you.
February will be 14.
Oh, it will? That was in February?
Yeah.
Damn, that was a long time ago.
I know, time flies.
We got you a cake. You cried.
I did.
I was like, I just figured everyone got cakes for their sobriety.
Day.
Yeah. People don't normally get sobriety cakes. They should make that a thing.
Well, it is a thing.
You just hadn't gotten one.
No.
Okay, well, I'm glad we could change that.
Yeah.
And your expectations will be higher next year.
I try and stay out of that. Expectations.
So I would like to start with what you've learned in the past 2 to 3 calendar years since COVID. What new lessons have come about for you?
Okay, first thing that comes to mind is, something I knew that we would get to and that I want to talk about is like, you get sober, and I think some people get to this quicker than I did. But working on the mental health piece, which is crazy because I work in mental health, but I didn't dive deep into working on my mental health till like, I don't know.
You just got sober without doing that?
Oh yeah. Where I got sober was it was a 12-step immersion program, meaning there was no therapy involved. It was just 12 steps.
Is that common now?
Oh, I would say that those programs that exist or existed have moved more and more towards including therapy because it
works.
Well, because it works, and it's been proven that, it's important. While the 12 steps are so incredibly powerful and do work, they aren't comprehensive when it comes to all the other stuff. And many of us that go into treatment are dealing with things that need more help than this is my opinion, an opinion that I think a lot of people share. I'm not speaking for AA, but that there are a lot of things that inside AA we would refer to as quote unquote outside issues, meaning therapy and addressing things that are mental health and whatnot. So trauma, and chemical imbalances.
But things that if they are significantly affecting you would be very hard.
Right. So what that means is if you're going to, and what I essentially had to do, I went to a program where I was not out yet. So I hadn't dealt internally with my sexuality. I didn't feel comfortable or safe doing it.
Why didn't you just pray it away?
Believe me, I tried.
Is that not what you're supposed to do?
It is. And I got
if you're out there,
I got an F in praying the gay way.
Most people don't pass that with an A, by the way. It doesn't seem to work, but keep going.
Right. So, where was I? You
were trying to do it without, you weren't out, so you weren't dealing with everything.
Right. Well, and even, core tenets of AA, which these programs that run off of that like are AA or 12 step, sorry, I should stop saying AA, but 12-step immersion programs, run off of the foundational steps of 12 steps, which are doing the inventories, getting absolutely honest, admitting that I'm powerless, that I need a higher power, something outside of myself that does have the power. And, part of that doing inventory and honesty piece is getting like absolutely thoroughly and wholeheartedly honest about everything in your life. And I couldn't do that, not even with myself. Now I knew that there was something there, but I still wasn't like fully, like I couldn't fully admit it. And I knew that why? Because it's such a tangled history for me. My conservative background and how I was raised to,
because if you were gay,
internalized homophobia, is essentially what it is. It's in the church, it's in Southern culture, it's in culture.
And if you were gay, it meant what?
God, did I ever even take it that far? Because it was like, that could not be.
Right. So
I think that for me, whereas there's a little bit of a difference, I think, in when I've talked to a lot of other gay people, when we share our initial stuff, from when we were younger. Because I was raised in such a charismatic background, many Christian circles teach that, homosexuality is wrong and it's a sin. But ours was a special flavor of that. And in the Pentecostal / charismatic realm, it's viewed a little bit more intensely. And there are a lot more nuances around it that are, it is an attack from the devil. And anyone and everyone is just as susceptible to, the spirit of homosexuality coming against you. And what you choose is, whether or not to participate in those behaviors, allow those feelings to... I'm laughing.
And in case y'all are wondering, the earth is also flat as well.
I'm laughing because like now that I know so much and work in mental health, and mind you, if you're new to this podcast, I'll say right now, I could still consider myself a Christian and somehow have come out of the other side still having a faith, but I have been able to redefine what that is. It's not textbook, what I was raised with.
This is interesting to me, and we haven't talked about this specifically, because what I asked you was, because if you were gay, it would mean what? But I'm interested because you just said all the things that your religion believed, which is that you have been, basically that you can't overcome the devil is essentially what it told you. And
it was a direct reflection on the health of your relationship with God.
Yeah, and your ability to control temptation and all these sorts of things. But what you also said was that I also still believe myself to be a Christian, which means that there is a disconnect between what they told you it meant and what you thought it meant to be gay.
So yes and no. In some circles, I wasn't told that I was not told that. I was raised in a realm of Christianity that was not like, it wasn't you lose your salvation from sinning. There's one ultimate sin that you could lose your salvation, which was denying that Jesus was the Son of God and, and that God raised him from the dead, and, the denying the gift of salvation and that. And that's what I was raised as, that was the sin that could remove your salvation.
That's the one.
Yes. And so, but there's very much a heavy present or inference on how there's this veil and separation, of that sin and quote unquote, they call it lifestyle sin, right? Lifestyle sin is so different. And no one could ever explain to me exactly what, other than one time, is because you're choosing it over and over and over. This is how it was explained to me.
Okay.
Lifestyle sin is something that you choose over and over and over. And I'm like, okay, well, obesity. I'm looking around at all the things that I could identify as sin in my church. And I'm
they
like,
identified a lot of things.
Right. Sure. And so, but homosexuality just gets it's crazy. Even now, it's such I think when I was younger, it was much less talked about in the church, but because it's so much more mainstream right now, the LGBTQ plus issues, the church is really, and conservative circles are really I'm not bringing this up to get on political sides. I'm just saying what the reality is in my experience.
Humans aren't political.
Well,
humanity shouldn't be political.
That's right. But unfortunately, we do see a really heavy conservative versus liberal leaning
agenda.
When it comes to faith acceptance of LGBTQ plus people and what have you. And so it's tough. It's a hot button issue right now. And you hear faiths in general, it's not just Christianity, but especially Christianity here in the United States, really talking about those issues. And I would say that it feels like way more than when I was younger. When I was younger, it was much more of something that was to be like talked about and dealt with behind closed doors because it was so shameful.
Mm-hmm. And so can you answer the question?
That is exactly how I dealt with it. Was
Shame.
Behind my own closed door. No one was invited in. I didn't even invite myself in for so long.
Yeah.
I was a year sober before, 25 years old before I was able to, and I know some people come out way later than that.
That's not early.
No, it's not early.
I mean, it's early if you're a boomer,
right.
But it's not early if you're a millennial.
Right.
And it's certainly not early if you're Gen Z. Are there even any Gen Zers that are 25? Where does that cut off, Michaela? You're barely Gen Z, right?
I'm about to blow y'all's mind. A new generation starts next year.
Don't love that. Don't love that for us.
Right now, the youngest generation is Gen Alpha. So
I lost count.
Right. So it's millennial, Gen Z, Gen Alpha is the youngest one that exists right now.
There's another one.
So there's another one that starts next year.
I don't like that.
Dun, dun, dun.
I think it's really interesting that our conversation already went straight to sexuality, which I don't think it surprises me, but the whole show is about recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of times like what we talk about and what you've talked about. We talked about your sexuality a lot too. Yeah. I mean, you've had like a lot of people on the show from the LGBTQIA plus community. But
or as my friend online likes to say, the Litica.
The Litica. It's like Leviticus, but different. You guys should read it. We went straight there instead of addiction, but that makes so much sense to me because I can't even believe that you got sober without dealing with it. You know, because that's such Alicia, we have the same therapist, everyone. Mm-hmm. And now she's just sitting on the same couch talking. She's going to be like, is this a conflict?
We're not saying her last name because y'all can't go to her.
Yeah, I can't even get in as it is. So, yeah. But I think I just don't know how.
She is the best therapist in Tennessee.
100%. Yeah. And if she wants us to say her last name, I'll plaster it all over the episode.
Absolutely.
But she
is in no need of new clients.
No, she's relatively busy. Mm-hmm. But I think she would call it the basement issue or like whatever is underneath there. And so that I'm glad we started there because to me it makes more sense because I think that, you know, I know you've explained addiction to me as, you know, hey, Erin, you know that little light switch or that little light bulb that comes on of like, hey, I've had 2 glasses of wine. Like, I got to work tomorrow. I shouldn't have anymore. You're like, that light switch? I'm like, yeah. You're like, I don't have that.
Right.
I know you described the potential and the disease a certain way, and that makes sense to me. But I also do think that the shame and isolation of your sexuality is what pushed you down a path to self-soothe, right?
Yes. And
correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, it's the pain, the isolation, and also I would say the loss.
Yeah.
Because imagine going through puberty, and I mean, I'm gonna get real TMI right now, but I don't care. But imagine going through puberty and the years when, as a male, you're supposed to be like have the highest sex drive and whatever, being. That just wasn't there for me, right? Like it wasn't happening because it couldn't. And so
you suppressed all your sex drive as well.
I mean, yeah. So imagine like suppressing all of that, and what there is a lot of like, if you never identify for yourself or have sexual expression, genuine sexual expression as a young person, at a certain, I mean, that energy has got to go somewhere, and that's a lot of energy for a dude. I don't know about for you know what I mean? And so if you think about like a base instinct, you deny yourself for so long, what ends up happening?
You have to release the energy elsewhere.
Well, you have to release the energy, but it also like it turns things to a place where, so I mean,
can make you sick.
It can make you sick. It makes you, I mean, like you're literally like,
you're like doing
when
this to biology.
There. Yeah. And so like been doing years of trying to repair that, just so that, I mean, because back to a lot of people haven't heard the term before, internalized homophobia, but it's exactly what it sounds like. And if you know me from any social media, this show, and life in general, you would easily look at me, I think, and be like, you seem so well adjusted. That sounds really prideful. I don't mean it like that. Think so. But I don't think that I present like someone who experiences discomfort with themselves. But how that, I think it shows up for me, back to bring it full circle. How that displays for me as an adult is an over punctuation on perfectionism.
So and a piece of that is not being too gay.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean,
because that's the thing.
People is.
Bring it up. And they're like, I've heard people say it not in the past, in modern day and age, of like, well, you're not that gay.
Right.
And it's like, I feel like you're saying that like it's supposed to be a compliment. I, of course, have not experienced that because I'm not, but like I've heard it said to some of my closest friends, and people think it is a check mark of approval, but you're calling the core of me and my entire community that the least degree of it is the best.
Yes. And people don't realize that. And the thing is, I think a lot of people in our community also don't know, because I would say that so many of us still have more work to do than not inside the LGBTQ plus community. And I think that we're still operating from that mentality too. So we take it when we hear it.
Thanks.
Oh, when I
of a badge of a stamp of approval.
Oh my God! If somebody says that, I don't correct them, and a lot of times my brain doesn't even go to that place of that's messed up. Now I know that to be true, but
your gut instinct is
my gut instinct is, and
or just like
good job, because
you made other people comfortable,
making other people comfortable, and yeah. There's so many layers to that, Erin. There really is. And, I received so many messages growing up, nonverbal and verbal, from family and whatnot, about men having feminine qualities being not appropriate, not what God intends, not, all these things. And, now I look at that and I'm like, that's so messed up, like, cause I think that we all have, and I just have such different views from that now. And, but
the hardwiring is still very much there for a lot. I think you are actually very well adjusted. Mm-hmm. You can be whatever level of gay you want to be.
Right.
But I think that there's so much underlying hardwiring, just like there is. I mean, you could take it on a much broader scale and say, women as a general rule are like kind of conditioned to not be too much, not be too overly assertive. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So we have so much hardwiring.
The whole like women are dramatic, or when I think about like what has been used, what's currently being, as a dart towards, like it's the emotions, it's the, all that stuff. And it makes my skin crawl because I'm like, that's also the Achilles heel that like men suck at. And I think that make us, those of us that suppress our emotions, not as great of leaders, or not as great of, because
you're still trying to fit into
it's a balance. Yeah. If you don't show up as a whole person, you're not a good leader. You're not good.
You're
that's
not authentic.
No, you're not authentic. And so that's so true. So going back to what you said, the thing about the being masculine or being feminine. So I would say, if we're coming to like present day years since I got sober, how does this all like relate? I got sober so that I could live a life, so that I could be happy, joyous, and free.
Okay, wait, hold on. Don't go too down the 12 steps, because I want to know the deeper meaning. I could tell you.
I'm not. Okay. No.
Okay.
So I got sober.
But were you going to die?
Yes, I was going to die.
Okay.
But that didn't matter to me if I couldn't have a life that was worth living. Why stay alive and this isn't me promoting, but this is the thought. This is the thought process of an active addict with passive suicidality.
Yeah, because people are looking at you being like, well, don't you want to live? And you're like, well, I'm not even allowed to.
Right.
As your truest.
So if I'm going to do this thing, get sober, do the deal.
Yeah.
Like, I need to know that there's a promise of hope, that I can have a life that I will be happy, that I will find joy, that I will know peace, that I will have serenity.
Or at least the option to maybe have it.
Exactly. All those things come and go. It's not that there's a guarantee that you have all of those things, but that they are there, that those things will occur. And if we work for them. And add on to that, I think the core foundation is authenticity, vulnerability with myself and with others. Okay, so I got sober out in the boondocks in Tennessee, stayed out there for a year working after I got sober. So I was a good bit removed from my family. And I felt like while I was out, there was not another gay person that I knew of out there. I had at a year sober, I felt like I had a safe enough, quote unquote, chosen family around me of the recovery community that I felt like I could trust enough to be honest with them at that point. And I knew I was at a place where I had to get honest. And that was the point where I came out.
Because why? You were going to relapse?
I wasn't going to relapse, but relapsing, what causes a relapse typically happens long before the first drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I knew that then.
Yeah.
And I knew that I had been keeping what needed to be processed internally, and then at least gotten honest with some people in my life, externally, that I did not need to keep that to myself. Did
it feel weird to hold that when everyone else around you was on the healing journey by just laying it all out there? And so was it hard to like listen to everybody else spill everything and admit everything they had done, and you still not say you're gay?
No, because I really didn't fully admit it to myself.
Oh, okay.
It was fully shelved And I didn't admit it to
What
myself
does that
until
look
shortly.
Like, what do you feel like? Do you just not think about it at all?
Have you ever like severely compartmentalized something?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
It feels like that.
Oh, it's exactly what it is.
Oh, yeah. That's like kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be bragging about that. It's not a braggable trait.
I mean, it's not, but
It can
it's
help you
also,
survive.
yeah, it's one of those things that like, until you're at a place where you can deal with it, it is a survival. I mean,
yeah.
And, but there's a point where it will start to tear your life apart if, cause it's done protecting you and it's time to pull it off the shelf. Yeah. There is a shelf life
on that.
On anything that is right.
Well, no, that's great. I've never heard anyone say that about compartmentalization, but like that, you're right. There's absolutely a shelf life on it where it ain't going to work anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, just like, when you've like old produce that you forgot about and like, you're just like, you have that healthy kick where you're just like, I'm going to eat all the vegetables and you put them in the vegetable drawer, which is typically like, you don't open that. And
I normally put cheese in there.
Whatever. Okay. So it's cheese and it's in the back and you forgot about it and it's 4 months later and there's like, all of a sudden you're like, what died in my house? And I mean, I liken it to that. However, you can easily just like throw something like that away. And I think that the damage that's done by not unshelving something that has been compartmentalized is so much more, potent and has the potential to blow up your life, more than just, a bad smelling experience that might make you want to puke. So, okay, looping back, I feel like I've taken forever to say this. What's really affected me in that regard in sobriety is that like, so I went through that process, as I told people, and there were levels of me coming out. And the hardest one was my family. And I knew that was going to be the case. And
were you right to be fearful of that? Absolutely.
So the comments, I did not have good feedback when I came out. And what's interesting is if you're watching this and you have, not come out yet, what I can tell you is that there's hope. There's hope. It's not, there's no guarantee about how it's going to go. But if you are resilient and you don't give up, you will find chosen family that will be there for you along the way to support you. And there will be difficult times, there will be heartache. And you have a choice every step of the way to let that teach you the lessons that it needs to teach you, whether it's who to trust, whether it's how to protect yourself, and who to go to when we talk about chosen family. I think that's really important because sometimes while we're still respecting the blood bonds of who your actual family are, meaning like maybe you haven't cut them off, but you're not open to them like you are to chosen family. Right. You're not receiving from them and you're not giving to them what you would ideally want from what we look at and think of as what you would want a family dynamic, healthy family dynamic to be. And so where the hope is there is, I think, in being tenacious and relentless with your effort in pursuing the coming out process and becoming authentic. It's that it won't look like, probably in every case, it won't look like you think it's going to look. But if you continue to pursue and own the fact that you deserve integrity, you deserve love, you deserve connection, you deserve support, and you deserve to show up exactly how you are. And that's going to change. If I could say anything, for me, who I am and how I show up has changed through the years as I've continued to work on myself, because just like we peel back the layers of the onion in trauma, layers of my personality have been able to become more free, and I've been able to find out more and more of who I am. So real quick, my family the piece that I will speak to on that is that I think the really hard thing that to this day is really difficult. There are certain sections of my family that stood up and said, because of the children, this was all hinged on the children. We can't have the homosexuality around them. And so, you're more than welcome to participate and be there if we're there, but you
can't even listen to you say this. It makes me so mad.
And what boggles my mind is that, oh,
you mean that all homosexuals aren't pedophiles?
Well, that, and with what they were saying, if you listen to the rhetoric, what was explained to me was very, we don't want it to be exposed to the kids. Now, I have never been one to wear my sexuality on my sleeve. Now, when I'm with you or with my girlfriends or who, but my family's never seen that side of me. And a lot of people don't, because it hasn't felt safe. So
you're vocal about supporting the community,
yes.
But there's nothing about you that's flamboyant.
Not only that, but I've never, in my family, I don't bring up my sexuality as a topic of conversation. I don't bring up my political views. I don't bring up what I think about LGBTQ plus issues.
So when you say you don't bring up your sexuality to your family, does that mean you also don't bring up your relationships at all with men?
So, we're going to talk about this, I think, a little bit if we have time. Obviously, if you've been keeping up with me at all, I went through a divorce last year. I was married for, oh my God, I'm so bad with time math, but I think it was, let's see, 2017
I was going to say 7 years?
5
engaged.
Let's cut out the me not knowing how many years it was.
This is about authenticity. No, I'm just kidding. It was between 5 and 7.
Right.
Y'all were together for, I think, around.
We were together for 9, I think, years.
And you were married for a long time.
Yes. And so that, that relationship was the only one that when I came out, that was the only one that my family members ever knew, until the one that I'm in now. I can't wait to get to that portion, but,
I love Daniel.
I do too. And so what I will say is that Patrick Custer never showed up to anything and displayed any type of influential, quote unquote, what they would describe as propaganda, conversation pieces,
is that the
or
word
anything.
That was used?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes. And influence, right? So not only that, but I've never, not even with my current partner, but I have never been a PDA person. Mm-hmm. And so I never understood when that was told to me as the reason why we couldn't go to Easter, Christmas, all the family gatherings, the birthdays, whatever. It started out as one thing, and then it was y'all can't come together. You're more than welcome to come. So
wait, which makes
because us coming together brings a question up for the kids: who is this other person? And yeah,
you've just this is people who are in this community that have had to deal with this for so long. Mm-hmm. You just repeat things and say it. And for me, hearing that back, my first instinct is, that is your responsibility as a parent to figure out how you want to explain something that's yours to deal with. It's not you as not a gay man, but a human. It's not your responsibility to leave your relationship or half of your identity, not that it's half, but you know what I mean, at home.
It's not my battle to fight, but even if they had wanted to, the part that I wasn't even in a place that I was going to judge them for is if they were well, we're going to tell them that we believe that what you're doing is abomination and that it's a sin, right? Like it wasn't even that was going to be a discussion. Like we don't even want our kids to know that you exist in that light. Like we don't even want them to know that this is a thing. So,
and you didn't want them to know because you didn't want your nieces and nephews to think you were bad.
No, I actually didn't care.
You didn't care at that point.
No, I didn't care if they knew. But it wasn't something that I was going to like I said, like I wasn't comfortable like PDA period. So it's like one of those things where do there have to be questions that are asked anyway? Because ultimately, I mean, we're a big family. Like when we get together, there's 25 of us that live in Middle Tennessee. And so our family started to break apart because of this. We don't all get together ever since this took place. Family members took sides and
all because of you.
Yes. And I hate to say that like it's,
it's not you bragging.
No, not at all. Because out of everyone in the family, I think I'm the most like, let's have a get together. And, but it has broken my heart. It's been very difficult. And it's something that I haven't spoken publicly about really till now because I don't know. I don't like controversy and it's not something that I've wanted to throw people under the bus, but I am at a place where I want to show up authentically. I feel like at this point I've got a lot of followers and audience members that feel like they know me, and there's parts of my story that this is being one of them that I've never really dug deep into and said, look, this is the nitty gritty of, what I went through and what's still going on. I mean, like
it's not over.
No, it's not over, and it continues. And so I also don't want to take away hope from people that haven't come out.
But you don't have to go that far. We're not taking away hope from people. You're just authentically talking about what you're going through. And
exactly.
What gives people hope is that seeing you and what you've been able to achieve, and that you have great chosen family, and that you have great friendships, and you have great relationships, and you have a great job, you have a very successful career. You don't have to give people hope with words. You are a symbol of that. You do a lot of things that you've done everything with your recovery, your sexuality, everything to support anyone who's come across the path of your community. Period. You don't have to give them that verbally. But what I will say is that what I find hope in your story for anyone, I guess, who's experienced the same things you have, is that even if you've never been protected, which is what you weren't, when you say that what you're doing in your family now and why you've chosen not to speak about this that much until now is that you're protecting. So I know you've heard me say this at least one other time, but it's like, you were looking out for them and they were looking out for them. And this is not me saying that I don't like your family, because the ones I've met, I really do like, but like,
you've met the ones that were looking out for me.
Yeah. And there were some, but like the ones, and we should make that differentiation, is that you do have family that was looking out for you.
Right.
You have siblings that like are very near and dear to you, but like the family as a whole, you were like, they were looking out for them and their kids and their reputation and their religion as they understood it to mean. It's not necessarily what Jesus would do, and you were looking out for them now, which is like, I still don't want to disparage anyone. I don't want to make anyone feel bad. But then if you do that, no one's looking out for you.
Right.
And I think the hope, so it's like the phrase, I was looking out for them and they were looking out for them, and who was looking out for me.
Right.
So, but the hope also comes in the fact that even though you didn't grow up with as much of people looking out for you as you needed, you found people who will look out for you now. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say, is that, when I started to say that, I don't want to discourage anybody that hasn't come out yet from, initiating their own journey. All those things you said are so true, that I have had chosen family come up for me. And I believe for me, it's been a combination of, I do believe in a higher power that has my best interest at heart. And it's somewhere in a 50-50 combination. I think it's been my own relentlessness in pursuing relationships and saying, I deserve all of these things that I said, 10 minutes ago in this episode.
How'd you get to deserving it?
I don't know. I've done so much work, Erin, on myself in various, that's why I'm like, get sober and then don't stop working on yourself, because the job is only beginning. There's so much more after the getting sober piece. If you're, watching and you're getting sober isn't something that you need to do, I would say it's really hard to find somebody who does not have trauma. If you have not started dealing with yourself on identifying where you are in your mental and emotional health and whether or not you have a trauma history, I would say that's a place to start. And, but I think that where the hope lies, or where the fruit comes from, and the result is like, put the work in and never giving up that you deserve those connections, and seeking out those connections, whether it be more external family members that you can find that maybe you haven't had a relationship with yet or before, or people in your community, or finding new community and continuing to search. Because if there's one thing that I know, is that, some people have pessimistic views about the world. I have a very positive viewpoint on humanity. And I think that when we get vulnerable enough in our hurt and in our reality and in what has happened, the right people come along and open up and want to be there for you. And that's been my experience, and that's all I can share, Yeah. So,
can we go back to the deserving part?
Yeah.
Because I think I'm trying to pinpoint anything that's going to feel like a hold up for someone listening, for someone to be like, okay, well, I can't go down that road because I don't think I deserve it. So helping try to define maybe the first moment you remember being worthy of something.
Well, that actually,
the underlying feeling.
That leads into the other theme that I was going to say when you asked me, circling back to the beginning of the episode, and you said, what's new for you?
We can circle
in
back, but
sobriety?
we can't with which.
Okay. So with which in this circle back?
No.
This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admissions center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help. When you asked me about going back to the stuff since sobriety, what has been new themes for me, what's changed, yada, 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 relates to what you just said, in that you were saying, how did you get to that place of deserving? I grew up in a household with a father who was a rager. That was his primary emotion, was anger. And a mother who, her way of dealing with that was codependency. 100%. Mm-hmm. So, I say this all the time, for people who are listening, my best example could be to tell you that when my dad, and let me say this really quick. Love my dad. We have a great relationship. He's done a lot of work on himself. And so there,
it can be both.
And it is both. And so I just want to say that, but this was my reality in my childhood. So, we would listen for how he was walking up because our main floor of the house I grew up in was, like the second story of the home. Like you drove into the garage and went up garage stairs to get to and they're wooden stairs, right? You hear the footsteps, there's a landing, and then there's like a wooden door from the garage to the rec room, and you hear that close. We could hear every creak, every single bit of that was exactly how we would prepare ourselves and position ourselves for what was going to be what was coming. And God love her. I love my mom to death. She did what she knew how to do to navigate and cope, which was morph into whatever she needed to protect us emotionally and to try and keep peace and just to, do whatever. And that in the realm of codependency. And we learned that survival technique from her. And my sister and I were both very loud. I know that's a shock to you. Growing up,
I don't think
she and I are 4 years apart. So we grew up as a sibling set, even though we were all one family unit. My brothers are 17 and 19 years older than me. And, but my sister and I we are very like outspoken people. We've definitely always had a voice and used it. I would say that for me, and I can't speak for her, but this sibling that was talking to me said, you and your sister had, you always had such strong outspoken voices, and I did not have that because of what I've dealt with codependency. Now, this sibling and I had not talked before about our shared but also different issues with codependency that we learned from our mom, because we grew up in two different households, meaning like a different time.
Yeah.
So we were kids in different places and different homes with really different parents, because they were 2 decades separate from their own development, but it was still going on back then when both my brothers were being raised. So, he looked at that and said, what he did about how you were always outspoken. Well, the truth is, yeah, I was outspoken, but what I didn't have was the ability inside to know what I felt or what I wanted. This has been something that has been eye-opening for me in probably the last 4 years of the work I've done on myself. Sorry, I need a sip.
Is it coffee? Is that coffee?
Mm-hmm. Okay. If you had asked me more than 4 years ago, I take that back. It may have been more recent than that. I can't really give you an exact time, but it's been like recent years that this transition happened for me, this healing, and I'm still working into it.
Of knowing what you want.
Knowing what I want, what I like, who I am, and what I feel. If you were to ask me to identify what feelings I'm feeling in like some years past, recent years past, I would have either said, I don't know, or the emotion that I that I thought I was supposed to say. Yeah. If you were a professional, like a therapist asking me, if we were in a situation where we were in a room full of people that was, or a group, what I liked, what I felt, what I always deferred to the strongest personality or the person who was most likely to cause waves or be upset.
Yeah.
If their stuff wasn't matched or met, if their needs weren't met.
Based on how you survived growing up.
Yeah. And so it has taken me so long to get to that place. And really it wasn't until honestly, that switch did not get flipped for me until making the decision to get divorced. The trauma that I was working through and the choices that I made to say yes to myself and opening that door that I'd never opened before. That journey actually really started, now that I'm thinking about it, it started at that time.
Yeah. I actually got to see that transition happen, and like some of the way your mind was changing on the road to your divorce, which was like going from, I can't believe this is so hard, I wish I could fix it, like I don't know what to do, to like, this doesn't work for me anymore. Like, and I actually got to see that. I remember a lot of those conversations leading up to that point, but it makes so much sense to me that you would have felt uncomfortable and very hesitant to actually come out with who you are, come out of the closet, any of it, because look what happened when your siblings and your mom did nothing wrong. So can you imagine having this cardinal sin scarlet letter like A on you? Like what rage as a child you probably thought that would bring when you saw what rage nothing brought?
Right.
Like, of course you couldn't say it.
Yeah.
Like, who knows what the repercussions are? Because if you blink too quickly, and what really it is that you guys weren't causing it. But what an outlet that could have been, and I'm not saying your dad would have done it. We don't know, but I think we could guess that when you have so much anger built up that it needs to come out, that you can blame it on nothing. You put something out there that could actually be targeted as a bad thing. And I can't imagine how scared as a child you would be. Oh,
absolutely. I mean, yes, people who struggle with their emotional regulation and aren't dealing with their own stuff 100% project that undealt with emotion on the people closest to them. Anything that is perceived as different or unacceptable.
Yeah, and even by God.
And so, and I mean, I saw, without going into it, I saw many examples of that in much minor detail in the family dynamic growing up. And so,
it was a non-option at that point.
It was a non-option. And so that, I mean, again, I've been sober for as long as I've been sober and been working in the field. And I don't think that I've ever thought that I was perfect, but I definitely thought that I had done work to a place where I considered myself at a place of healing where I was healthy. And I had no idea how much my trauma was holding me back from existing as a whole person.
Yeah.
But again, I talk about the
divorce considered sinful as well?
Yeah, I mean, whatever.
Your marriage didn't count anyway.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Obviously, if y'all can't tell, I have a very dark sense of humor.
Yes. But, and I don't mean whatever as in the divorce didn't matter. I take divorce very seriously.
No.
What I meant by that was just that it, I feel wholeheartedly that like everything that happened how it was supposed to happen and was dealt with it in the right way. I don't regret decisions around that, and it's not worth debating.
I want to talk about where your perception. There's something about your perception of God, higher power. Like everyone responds to different. Some language, the language around it differently. For me, I find myself saying the word universe is comfortable for me, but it's all the same thing. So it's interesting to me though that most people get their understanding of religion and God from being taught, but it still feels like you always had an understanding that even though you were taught this one very stringent Bible Belt Pentecostal way, that you knew better. That's always been interesting to me about you, because it's almost like, I know that you knew you were going to get lashback from your community, but to me it always seems like you weren't scared about what God thought about you. You were scared about what people thought. So where'd you get that part? Or were you really scared about God?
No, I was never scared about God.
That's interesting though, because most people are.
Yeah, gosh, I've never thought about this before, Erin. Because I think that if you had asked me before, I would have said that it was that component that I referenced, the spirituality component of like it not being okay and God, what God thought. Like I've never pulled those two things apart. So
you have
when you
with your
ask
words,
that,
accident.
okay, no,
noticing.
but not consciously.
Yeah. No, I know.
So
I know what you mean.
when you ask me about that and I'm thinking about it, that narrative was never something that I was, I remember having homosexual thoughts as a teenager, and whenever that would happen, I mean, the amount of times I'm telling you that I prayed for the prayer of forgiveness for, I'd be a millionaire if I had $1 for every time,
I wish you could get that.
like a billionaire. But I don't like, it was this like obligatory dogma, ritualistic thing that I felt like I had to do. I lived through a lot of fear-based stuff as a kid. I don't know what caused it. We've talked about a lot before about my earliest memory was being so scared that I was going to have a brain tumor that haunted me for like all the way until I did have a brain tumor.
Very powerful manifester right here.
I mean, and so there was a lot of time spent with me being a kid by myself, with my thoughts being scared and connecting with God. And something happened there that I always felt like I had a strong relationship with a higher power that had my back, that was always listening.
That didn't hate you.
That didn't hate me, that loved me unconditionally.
That's so interesting.
And the stuff around it is exactly what it is, the stuff. All the rules and the do's and don'ts and the shades of whatever you want to color, like that never felt to me like something that truly interfered with, affected, or whatever my relationship with God. So when there was a period where I could not reconcile. I knew. And I think it was that period where I got sober, or right before I got sober, maybe. I don't know how long it was, but I had shelved my relationship with God because it wasn't something that I was no longer interested in having, but I could not find, I was so lost because I could not reconcile the two worlds of what I felt like that was, what I was told couldn't be,
and what you knew,
what I knew to be right. And atheism wasn't the answer for me, because I never believed God wasn't, and God was for me, so real. And, it wasn't until I, went through the 12 steps that I was able to, come to a place of understanding that, God, for me, revealed himself, as only he could to me, in such a way that like I could understand him. And
how did the prayer change when you unshelved what you needed to unshelve? And
it changed.
How did the prayer change from God, make me not gay, to what?
The prayer changed from being all fear-based to being, I think one of the prayers that I love so much from 12 steps that really helped, that it was the St. Francis and the third step prayer. And sometimes I get them confused. So if I'm saying the wrong one, big book thumpers, forgive me. But God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thy will. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do by thy will. Take away my difficulties, the victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy love, thy power, and thy way of life. And that prayer and the other one, which
Is the other one Serenity?
No, not Serenity.
Oh.
It's one is the St. Francis, one is the third step prayer.
Okay.
But they both really transformed my prayer because I went to this place of simplicity in that I knew that coming from a place of fear of just like, God, I don't, here are all these things I'm scared of that I don't want and I don't feel like I deserve, or here are all these things that I want that I feel like I deserve, so let me ask for them.
Mm-hmm. So you're a good person at this point.
So yeah, if I can take those away, because those are all, if I can say, are any of what I'm praying about, do they fit into those categories? Mm-hmm. If I can take away my fear-based prayers and move into a place where it's, authentically, just God, what do you have for me? How can I show up? What's best? Just guide me.
Why am I here?
Why am I here? And help me to be a channel of what you would have me to do. Those themes continue to be my prayers today. Mm-hmm. Because I'll pray for peace. I'll pray for serenity. I'll ask God for those things, but it's that instead of, I'm so scared of having a brain tumor. Please prevent that from happening. Yeah. It's God, no matter what, I know that your plan is the best, and that, it's just completely changed. And it's no longer for me a condemnation.
Yeah. And I think in, hearing just the way that the way that you've gotten to where you are and is pretty incredible. And you really just took the plan that was given to you and just really locked in and did it, mm-hmm. And have used it, projected it out in a good way, been loud about what hasn't worked with you and how you fixed it and how it could help other people. But I think when I think about the struggles and I love my gay friends. I got lots of them. They are some of my favorite people on earth, not because they're gay, but because they've been forced into authenticity. Mm-hmm. And
we don't live in a world of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just, it's Sean and I talk about this a lot. My brother who co-produces the show, and anyone who's authentically themselves, Sean can hang with. Mm-hmm. 1 ounce of fake, he's done. He just can't do it. And although I can tolerate people a little bit more where Sean will be like, get away from me. Mm-hmm. The authenticity factor is the best possible quality you can seek in a friend and a human, because you get the truth and the real version all the time. But when I think about what all of you have been through, whether it's you or Brooke, who we've talked to on your show, or Tyler, or any of my other friends that have experienced this, it's, when you have something that is universal truth according to the church or according to your family or according to the world, and you have a universal truth that or at least very strongly believe to be true about you, and they intersect, believe that something is wrong. Mm-hmm. Because if you know that you're a good person, or that this is how you felt since you were 2 or 3, or that you've experienced love and it is truly love because anyone who's been in it knows it. If that is directly coming to a head or coming to combat with something that you've been taught is true, believe yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Because if they use the sign, not that you need to bend, but that something about the universal truth that you were told, or religious truth that you were told, is not right.
Yeah. And so
resistance doesn't need to be assigned to bend. It needs to be maybe assigned to pick your own.
Yes. And I think one area where I would say, you said, as you and Sean, not part of the Litica community, but allies. And, but, identifying how valuable you've noted the authenticity that has been, kind of like we're forged through. Mm-hmm. And not all of us, because some of us have yet to get through that right. spot, but many of us are there because we've had to be. I would say that one of the reasons why I think this is important for me to say, we talk about storms of life, overcoming adversity, addiction, mental health, breaking stigma, and so that we can provide hope and help other people mm-hmm. Who either need encouragement or who have yet to overcome their storm, to provide them tools and feel less alone. One of, I think, the biggest things that I feel you just hit on about being in the LGBTQ plus community and what we have experienced in persecution, or all these things that you just said, there's a parallel that people outside of this community also, I think anyone can identify with, but especially those who might be straight, that have been through addiction and are in recovery, mental health challenges, and or trauma. Anything that you've been through that has a level of shame and stigma associated with mm-hmm. There is such a strong tendency in our society to say that doesn't have place in conversation. That doesn't need to be the part of you bring to relationship, to conversation, to whatever. The part of you that you bring is the part that looks good, that sounds good. You're going to therapy so that when you show up in relationship in a social setting and whatever, you can be zipped up and be, all the things you're quote unquote supposed to be. Mm-hmm. And what I've found, as I get a sip of water, authenticity and going through what I've gone through and all of these things. But like we said, the gay thing for me was kind of like something that forced me through at first. Like one of the first things I will connect with people on, I mean, we're talking about like some deep stuff if because of my vulnerability that people sense with me when I first meet a person, whether we're getting coffee or we meet at an event, it's so easy for me to dive into that, and it's so easy for them to open up. It's insane.
If you go first, people follow.
Yes. And they can feel, when you feel somebody so well adjusted to all of the parts of them that are who they are, it like people's walls come down. There's totally something about them feel, they're like, I feel an orbit of safe around you that I've had people tell me they haven't felt that around other people, period. Mm-hmm. We've had many people on the podcast that come on and they're like, I've never shared that before because I've never felt comfortable enough to say that to anybody.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, it is like such a blessing. It's not a prideful thing. It's something that just reaffirms that I'm continuing to go on the path that I need to of my own healing journey, that it is, because beyond helping me, I want it to help other people.
Yeah. And if you don't believe that someone will be more accepting, now we don't know about every member of family, every member of church. Like, if you come, whether it's coming out or being vulnerable at all, you don't know that everyone's going to accept it. In fact, that won't be the case. But right. There's a reason that you've ever been at some sort of conference or you're seeing a great speaker. There's a reason people lead with self-deprecation. There's a reason why that works. There's a reason why some of your favorite comedians are a shit show.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't believe that there's a lot of acceptance on that side of, you know, if you are okay with other people doing it, but you're like, well, if I'm vulnerable, it's not gonna be accepted. Just think about some of the best speeches or comedians or anything that you've ever seen. There's a reason. I mean, it neutralizes and just disarms everybody, and it's real. And you've seen it happen over and over again on the show, and I see it happen all the time.
Yeah.
I use it all the time just because it feels authentic to me. Like,
people don't connect on how perfect we are. We connect
there's
on
nothing relatable about perfection.
You know, what's interesting is the more that I do stuff in the world of, you know, PR, publicity, the entertainment industry and things, you know, I'm seeing how stuff that trends is not the perfect, the with which language. It's the blooper. It's the thing that went wrong. It's the, you know, it's the so-and-so says this for the first time. I mean, obviously that we're talking about sensationalism, and that's not always good, but what I mean is I mean, like, there's something to be said. We see it on grand scales and minor scales, both in media, social media, and in your everyday conversation, that people tune in when it's not the vanilla, like, tone that we hear, the perfect photoshopped life story,
right?
Whatever. And it's not interesting. It's to be or say
Does
that
it feel good to watch.
No.
I mean, I don't look at a picture of Kim Kardashian before I get in a swimsuit. You know, it's like, that doesn't make me feel good. The perfectionism isn't relatable. I have no problem with the Kardashians. I'll do your thing, but that's not a relatable thing.
Right. And even if, so that's where I was getting, I love that you said relatable, because even if you feel like you can't relate to the LGBTQ plus thing, what you can relate to, and I believe wholeheartedly, is the experience of feeling like you cannot show up as yourself in many or some or maybe all forms of society or your world. And you have to show up as there is this version, like a suit that you step into, and that switch is flipped. And if that sounds familiar to you, I promise you there is stuff to work on underneath that layer. And if you have an opportunity, the resources or the means to get into therapy, I would encourage you to do so, because you are not meant to exist in a skin that is not who you actually are. And you don't have to.
Yeah, nobody else should be telling you what you should be zipping or unzipping or wearing or what suit you should be in. Them.
Right. Well,
I can bleep it.
Yeah.
Just saying, it's your suit.
This is true.
We don't have to end with the F word, but I really will bleep it out. Because we were so well behaved during that for the most part.
We were. I think
it just didn't feel right. I had to say
I don't think I said a single cuss word. Did I?
I don't think so, but I will say it's much more impressive for me than you. You think you cuss more than me? Mm-hmm. No way. Patrick, what about, now that you're zipping up your own suit, what are you happy about in your life?
I'm just like having this image of
you in a jumpsuit. Me too. I'm picturing white denim. Hate to be specific.
That would look, my spray tan would definitely ruin that in 5 minutes. I was thinking more like overalls, you know. But
overall, where are you and what is making you happy at this point in your life? What are you happy about?
Okay, so I love to talk about joy, because that is the emotion that I just like. I know that we've got to experience all of them, and they're necessary, but joy is the one that I get excited about. So even in times of sadness, I know joy is coming.
Yeah.
And that's what anchors me in knowing that I need to feel the sadness, because if I don't fully feel it, it's going to rob me of the time when joy has its moment. And so it's been a huge, I mean, I could do a whole nother talk on that, but, where I'm finding so much joy today is that, a relationship came along. I'm so happy with the person that I'm, in a partnership with right now, Daniel.
He's mi mejor amigo.
Yes. I don't know what that means.
Mejor amigo.
I don't know what that means in Spanish. I haven't learned enough yet.
My best friend.
Erin had a double major in Spanish. So she and my partner, who is Venezuelan and his native tongue is Spanish, speak a lot. And I don't know what they're saying, which is fine because he loves it. And I love seeing him happy. And
I love seeing him happy too. He's so funny.
Yeah.
But sometimes all of his jokes are in Spanish, so only I get to enjoy them.
Exactly. It's interesting because the sense of humor is different than the American sense of humor. So we're still
I'll just be cracking up. Patrick's like, what is it?
Yeah. But okay, so joy. I would say that it's finding, I never knew what I found in this relationship, and the peace and freedom and joy that I could have. It's just like unlike anything that I've ever, come across. And he and I are both on our own healing journeys in therapy and in becoming better versions of ourselves. And that's it's been a really just beautiful thing for me to walk through. It's been the first time that I've ever had that in a significant other. And so I live that out in gratitude. And I would say that, a lot of things professionally, this job that people ask me, what do I do? I do so many things under the umbrella of working for Promises. This podcast is one of them. And, this year and next, there are so many things that are unfolding in the ability of me to use my creativity and grow. Some people get so scared of unknowns. I get so excited about unknowns. It's to me, it's an invitation to get back to that childlike joy of the night before Christmas morning, if that's what you celebrated, or whatever you can think about getting so excited about beforehand, because you knew it was something to be excited about, but you didn't know all the things that were going to happen. And that's where I consistently go to right now in my place of creativity. And it's part of this podcast. It's other speaking opportunities that I'm getting to do publicly and in different events. And so I don't know what's to come, and I kind of love that. I'm taking it one step at a time. I will say that I kind of want to end on this. Going through divorce, I lost half, maybe more than half of my friends just immediately stopped talking to me, and I haven't heard from them since.
Cut the dead weight.
That was not me. It happened for me, and it felt like it happened to me when it happened.
Of course. And
it took a long time for me to heal and process through that. But the reason why I want to bring that up is that if you are about to, or you're going through a divorce or an extreme breakup, and you are feeling the pain and the grief process of losing those relationships, just know that, again, back to what I was saying, be relentless in the pursuit that you deserve, and it will be provided to you. The connections that you need, the relationships that are meant to be there. Because as soon as I started to embrace that, instead of trying to fight why I deserved the dignity of these people not cutting me out of their lives. Sorry, sip time. As soon as I decided to stop fighting that, let go of that, and pour myself into new relationships, because I realized I had stopped doing that. I'd lost myself in the identity of my ex and their primary relationships, and letting those roll out. And so it was almost like a new concept for me to turn that switch back on, especially at such a different place in life. It feels very different at, how old was I at that point? 36 and 37, I think. And, it's very different at that point than like in my 20s, when everybody was my best friend. you know, and it like putting effort into developing new relationships, you know, at a different stage. It's a totally different thing, but it's a mindset. And I had to internally flip that switch. But once I did, and I opened that door to other people, I became vulnerable. My higher power, the universe, whatever you want to call it, brought so many wonderful, healthy, strong, consistent people that love and care about me so fiercely to this day. And it has been a beautiful thing for me. And I've only been more encouraged about life. So when you ask me like, what brings you joy today? I think about, my God, all the new things, all the things that opened up for me once I decided to say, there was a switch that I flipped in that process last year. And it was relationships. It was I'm putting me first, really.
It was much deserved.
Yeah. And so just to wrap that up in a bow, if you're listening and you're feeling the pain or the fear because you haven't pulled the trigger of losing relationships, those relationships are not worth your dignity, losing your dignity. They're not worth you staying in pain. They are not worth you fighting for and trying to convince people that you deserve support, love, honor, respect, all the things. You deserve to have relationships where you give and receive freely, and you do not have to convince the other people that you deserve to exist in that relationship. And so take that as information. And as our therapist would say, let that inform you. And hopefully that gives you some hope.
Hope is the goal.
Yes. This podcast is brought to you by Promises Behavioral Health. If you or a loved one are struggling with trauma, addiction, or mental health, we are ready to answer your questions and help you take that next step. Call our admissions center at 888-648-4098 or visit us online at www.promises.com. Our team is ready and waiting to answer the call for help.